8, 9 months in where we were like, we've made a terrible mistake. We should move back.
No, what are you doing? Is there something wrong with you?
Please, I need someone to hang out with. Probably the biggest thing I noticed when going back with family is how...
Hey everyone, in this conversation, Ben Brandt shares how he and his wife decided during COVID with a toddler and another baby on the way to leave Portland and move to Heidelberg, Germany. We talk about adjusting to life abroad, parenting differences, language challenges, building community as expats, and how this experience is reshaping their family and identity. It's an honest, reflective look at the ups and downs of making a big move. And now I bring you Ben Brandt. Well, Ben, welcome to the show. Where did you live before Germany and when did you move?
I grew up in California, and then my wife and I, we moved to Portland, Oregon, and we were there for probably 6 years before we moved, and we really loved it there. Portland is an awesome place. And then, we moved to Germany in 2021, so kind of during the COVID lockdown times, and I think that was a bit of the motivation was getting a change of scenery.
You and your wife moved at the same time. There must have been some kind of discussion there.
So it was COVID times. We had been kind of stuck in our house with our toddler for, I don't know, at that point, like a year. And I think we wanted something to change. We were thinking like maybe we should buy a new house. Maybe we should just do something different. And I'm a software engineer, and on one of the email newsletters I get, there was a posting for a job in Heidelberg, Germany. And my wife and I had visited Heidelberg maybe 8 years before and thought, wow, this place is really cool. We were only there for a couple of days, but we just kind of fell in love with the city. And so I saw this job for this technology I really love, plus Heidelberg, which we liked. So then I was like, that would be cool, but that'll never happen. But my wife looked at the job posting and was like, no, you have to apply. This is perfect for you. And so we sent an application thinking like, well, that'll never happen. But eventually I got offered the job, and once it started getting more real, we definitely spent a lot of time talking about it. And at some point we thought this is kind of risky, that we're not really sure how this is going to go, but we felt it was one of those decisions that we would regret not trying. We might regret moving there, but we felt we would regret more like having not tried it if we spent the rest of our lives just thinking, what if? So we started selling all of our stuff or giving it away until we got down to like a few suitcases and then made the move to Germany.
You and your wife definitely took a leap of faith there, especially when you were already parents, to make the move. Plus COVID, it's just like this perfect mix of, what are you doing? Is there something wrong with you? kind of.
Yeah, I left out the part that, my wife was currently pregnant. And when we moved, it was like 3 months before my second daughter was going to be born. So to just add to the craziness, we thought, this was all a great idea. In hindsight, maybe we were a bit naive, but we don't regret it at this point.
I want to ask you, so you said you moved in 2020, right? 2020,
2021, June of 2021, yeah.
And this is a question that don't have to go into politics, but I'm really curious whether the political situation in the US might have affected you in deciding also to move out for a while.
I think that the political landscape in the US just feels very chaotic at the moment, but I guess that's kind of becoming more the norm across the world. There's just a lot more chaotic situations, things that you thought you kind of took for granted aren't there anymore. I mean, when we moved, technically there was a new president, and so some Germans were definitely like, but you have a new president, why are you moving here? But I think it wasn't like I don't think we moved primarily because of the political situation, but it's also kind of a factor of like, how long do we stay here? Each election kind of comes with its own chaos, and it's made me reflect on like things I used to take for granted, I think, in terms of a certain amount of stability that just isn't there now. And I guess I'm not expecting it now. From the political situation. I think unfortunately, it feels like it'll just continue to be a bit chaotic, which is unfortunate.
Do you feel like after moving that the political landscape that you are immersed in now in Europe and in Germany is a bit better than what you had before you moved?
Yeah, that's something I reflect on as well. I think since I'm not a German citizen so I don't get to vote here, I'm not as plugged into the political landscape here. And it also seems like even like following along in the last election, there seems to be some similar moves happening. So like I said, I think it's just kind of unfortunately feels like the world is simultaneously moving in similar directions. Some of the changes aren't happening as drastically as in like the last few months, but it is what it is, I guess.
Yes. Let's switch gears away from politics. That was all the politics I had in store. I'm curious to know. So, if an old friend who knew you before you moved saw you now, what do you think they would say that is different about you?
It's a good question, and it's one that's kind of hard. It's hard to reflect on yourself because you've slowly changed over, like in the last 4 years we've been here. Let's see. One friend kind of commented that our way of speaking in English has changed slightly. They just noticed some different phrases or different ways that we've used words. And I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I get to speak English at work and have the whole time here, which has maybe inhibited my German learning. But I do notice myself applying a filter to my English to make myself be understood. So I try and like think through like, oh, I don't want to use certain idioms or phrases that might be unfamiliar to a non-native speaker. And so I think I have like adjusted subconsciously to how I even speak English. So I wasn't surprised when someone mentioned that. I think it is slowly affecting how I even speak my native language. Probably the biggest thing I noticed when going back with family is how we go about parenting. In Germany, I think it's much more encouraged to allow kids to be more independent, let them do a lot more things on their own. I think the playgrounds are much, you could call them more dangerous or maybe more fun, or but there's definitely, I guess, like amount of risk that's kind of encouraged in children to take more risks to figure out how to handle taking risks, even on something like a playground. And so now when we go back to the US and visit someone, they're like, your kid's like 40 feet ahead of you. Aren't you going to call them back? I'm like, oh, I could still see them. And I remember when I first came to Germany, I didn't think I was a helicopter parent, but then like I noticed I was like the only one hovering around my kid at the playground and this sort of thing. And so I don't think I fully embraced the German parenting style. I think we're still probably more cautious and aware. But we've also like gone somewhere in between, and we're a bit more relaxed, a bit more willing to let our kids do stuff on their own. I don't know. It's also kind of an adjustment going back. I feel, at least in Heidelberg, I don't know every city in Germany, but I feel safer letting my kids do certain things because we're in the Altstadt. There's not as many cars. There's a lot more people walking around, and you kind of notice people keeping an eye on your kids. And so I think there's kind of a community aspect living in like a very tight neighborhood that makes me feel more okay. Whereas if I'm back in the US on like a huge street with lots of cars, and so I think there's something to just the living environment that allows me to feel that way. I think that's like the biggest comment we get now, being a bit looser with our kids in terms of what we let them do.
Deliberately.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you touch a little bit more upon this community feeling that you get in Heidelberg? What kind of people make up the community there? Beyond them looking out for your children, what else do you feel?
I mean, I think a lot of our close friends here in Heidelberg are other people who have moved here, either from the US or from other countries. I think Heidelberg's pretty international. So we have friends kind of from all over. Like sometimes I think, oh, it'd be nicer to be more connected closer to other Germans, but I can also understand why. I think we've built this community because we're all kind of in a similar spot, all navigating different immigration things or just things that happen when you move here, or you meet someone else at the playground who just moved here and you're like, oh, can I give you some tips? Here's like how we navigated this. Here's where the doctor you should go to. And so I think like just this kind of community trying to help each other as we're all landing here and we've experienced similar things. And we're all like, I guess, we come without a community. We're looking to meet people. So I think like because of all of that, that's not surprising that we kind of like create our own little community here because we're all in a similar spot looking for similar things, which I think helps to make friends. So I think that's a part of it. But then, yeah, like I said, just living in the Altstadt, Heidelberg is still like a fairly big city by German standards. It's not huge. It's not Berlin. So it also has like a smaller town feel. And so, I don't know, you get to know your neighbors and people at the grocery store, and they know whose kids are whose and where people roughly live. And you kind of wave to each other as you're walking your dogs and talk to each other with small chat.
Heidelberg's population now is what, 200,000, is it?
Yeah, somewhere around there, maybe a little less.
And Portland is millions, right?
Yeah, Portland is definitely bigger, but it's also much more spread out. So I think Portland, like it has similar feels. It's not as big as like San Francisco or Seattle feeling. And you can kind of get most places you want to in about 20 minutes, but there's still like really good restaurants and like things to do. So I guess a similar vibe as Heidelberg, of a big enough city, but not too big. And I think that's our sweet spot for our family, which is kind of an attraction attraction. Like I think Berlin is really cool. Like we like visiting, but I don't know if that was like that's part of why we were excited to move to Heidelberg was it was just a bit smaller, get to know people a little bit better.
Yeah, I'm very happy for you that you decided to go straight to a multiple times smaller kind of city rather than go to Berlin first, like we did, like ending up in Dusseldorf, which is similarly sized to Heidelberg, which is 600,000 people here. So when you meet people on the streets now, then the community, back to the community thing. So I'm imagining that because these are people that are also uprooted and then they moved to where you are conversing mostly in English. So I'm curious, do you speak German now?
I have like an A1 certificate, so nothing to brag about. But all of my work is in English. We have a lot of friends that we speak English because it's kind of the common language. And like we really try and speak English at home for the kids because they're in German school all day. So we want to make sure that they get exposure to English at home. I can get by in most situations. I can deal with some doctor's appointments with my kids, and then like if I have to, I'll switch to English. But I try and default in these situations to German and see how far I can get. My work has been pretty busy, I guess, so I haven't had like tons of time to do German classes. Like I kind of wish that I had the time and like really invested in that early on, and so I kind of have to do it on the side, and I think it goes slower than I would like, but after like 4 years I'm feeling also more comfortable trying out some longer sentences, slowly getting there. But seeing some other friends, like I think if you have the time and you move here to like take the classes, really invest in that, and I think it'll pay off like really quickly. I know like Heidelberg and Berlin, there's a lot of places where you can speak English, but there's a lot of places where it's just really helpful. You might be able to convince someone to speak English with you, but I think as our kids are in school now, the parent-teacher nights are all in German, the like Elternabend, like everything's in German. And so I think the more familiar you are with the language, the easier it is to kind of engage with the broader community beyond just like the friends you make at the playground or whatever. Everyone's super nice and they will definitely try. But I think anytime you invest in like learning the language, then it'll pay off.
I'm in agreement with you on that. It doesn't really matter where you end up. If you're going to end up in a place that speaks a different language, it makes perfect sense to try to learn the language. But of course, we try our best, right? Like work that you have 2 kids and all of these things. It doesn't make it easy.
Going to the doctor, getting forms filled out, like a lot of these things, like it'll default to German, and if you like get really lucky, they'll do it in English for you. But sometimes like they really don't want to, which is fair, I guess. I think like there's also some amount of anxiety whenever I need to like make an appointment or call somewhere on the phone and I like rehearse it in my head, like what I'm going to say. The more I've done it, the easier it gets. And so I think just the faster you can get to the point where you feel okay making mistakes. Like I think that as an adult language learner, I think that's you're really afraid to like say the wrong thing, and this really holds back. And I think part of it's just been getting used to like, yeah, as long as I get most of the point across, they can ask me to say it again. And I think just being okay, just saying the wrong thing has like helped a lot. But I remember at first it was really like, I just didn't want to like even try because I knew I was going to do it wrong. For me also, like my listening comprehension is much better than my speaking, but even that has helped out a lot in terms of just getting an idea of what's being talked about. Try your best to talk back, and if you have to switch to English, you switch to English.
Exactly. I'm the same when it comes to listening comprehension. It's easier to listen and understand than to have to speak it proper sentence structure, knowing the grammar, knowing the vocabulary, knowing the conjugation and all of that stuff. Right?
Yeah.
I'm curious to know whether you have local friends. So, people who are from Heidelberg or maybe moved there from other parts of Germany.
I would say we have like a pretty good group. Like I said, a lot of them are like a lot of other families who have moved here. But there's like also a fair amount that it's maybe an American married to a German, or half of them are from Germany. Yeah, there's like a bridge there. And like I said, I think I don't want to speak for all Germans, but I do know that it's kind of a big deal for Germans to call you their friend. It means a lot to them to say that and so I know that it's like a bigger bridge to jump rather than like someone who just moves here is like, please, I need someone to hang out with. My wife and I also like, I think we've made an effort to we hear someone speaking English at the playground, we go and like talk to them and just say, hey, how long have you been here? So we've also like found a lot of people here just through that. And then you kind of like plug them in. And as the community has grown, we have like a dozen different families. Some of us, we hang out more than others, but we can usually plug someone in. Oh, you're like living next to this person. There are some people, some of our friends now, who right after we moved here, we had a lot going on. We were about to have a baby. We were trying to find an apartment, and they really like stepped up, helped us get to doctor's appointments, even though they had just met us. And so I think like knowing how much that impacted our move here. And our first year was really rough. Like there was a lot of stuff that just happened, and moving to new countries hard. But it was only because of those friends that I think we made it, and like made it on to year 2 and now year 4. And so I think just trying to also remember how impactful that was for us, and like paying it forward to other people. Like how can we do the same and provide the same experience? And so I think because we're doing that a lot, that is like a lot of who we end up hanging out with. And I think there's definitely some friends though who have been here for a long time. Like they're not German, but they've been here for a very long time. So we also rely on them to help explain things to us.
I think you pointed out something that is also true for us. We also meet some German friends here through this kind of mixed marriages, right? Chinese person with a German, or Singaporean with German, and so on. So that helps a lot. Do you ever feel maybe there's something wrong if we continue to just be in this little bubble of like English speaking community in the middle of like a German city?
It's something I think about. I think when you move to another country, there's just a lot that is new, unknown, uncomfortable. And so I think there's like some comfort in just having people that you can like relate to, who understand what you're going through. It's nothing against any Germans I met, but sometimes I think it's hard for them to understand some of the struggles or challenges you go through because they haven't done it. I think I feel this actually going back to the US now. Like I also feel out of place there now because people there also can't relate to the challenges or struggles that I'm having. So there's like something of just migrating to another country. You're going to be in a spot where I think you feel maybe not fully understood now in your home place or in the new place. So that's why I think like it's easy to gravitate towards people in that same spot, because you kind of feel seen and understood in a way that maybe you don't feel otherwise. We're kind of unsure on how long we're going to stay. We're open to staying pretty long, but I think if we're going to stay here for a really long time, then I think it would be a problem if we're here 20 years and still don't have like close friends with Germans here. It's hard to just say like, yeah, I need to like make one German friend so that I can feel better about myself. Am I like willing to be a part of the community here, or am I just trying to like stay in my own bubble? Because my German isn't great, I'm not engaging in like German social events where I might meet people who are from here. And so then I tend to be hanging out with people in situations where I'm feeling more comfortable. So I think it's also like I'm not necessarily putting myself in positions where I can go make lots of friends with people who live here. I mean, our kids are making friends at school. They want to do play dates, and so we meet them, and it's great. But I think also probably lots of people who have lived here for a while have friends and family that like they might already have a fairly full social calendar. They're not necessarily feeling the need to get lots of new friends. Whereas people who've just moved here, like we have no one, and then it's like, okay, I want someone to hang out with. I need social interaction. And so then like, hey, you're like fairly normal and friendly, and why don't we like, are you doing anything on Saturday? Because I'm not. And so I think like there's, I guess, some availability from like moving somewhere that you have to just like meet new people. I will also take some ownership. We could probably be more intentional about trying to like invite other people over or do stuff with other families that we've met here. Like I said, with speaking the language, right? Like I think you have to get over this feeling of saying the wrong thing. And I think when you feel this friction of like, oh, they're English, like some of them you just know they're not as comfortable in English. I'm not comfortable in German. This will be kind of awkward. And I think it puts like some friction just inviting someone over and like,
True.
having them over to your house and doing a play date with the kids or whatever, or meeting up at a park somewhere. There's a hurdle there that we have to get over. And that's where I think we could probably be more intentional in building those relationships.
It comes back to language. I think when you have a pocket of time, when you have fully settled, I would also invest in the language. I'm like A2, maybe non-certified B1 level. So I definitely want to get to C1 at least, so that I feel much more like I don't shut down conversations just because of my lack of ability to speak the language.
We express so much of who we are through language. And like connect through language, like talking to each other, getting to understand each other. And so I think when there is a language barrier, it's harder to communicate these things, to feel, I don't know, closer to each other, to build a relationship. Yeah, I would agree. Like I think the more comfortable you can be trying, I think sometimes all of this can also be a bit in our head in terms of how impossible it feels, but it's not actually if we just try. But I have to remind myself that.
I'm curious to double click a little bit on this part where you as a parent, you're knowingly living in Germany, fully aware that your children are going to grow up in this kind of one foot being American, one foot being German. What are you and your wife's thoughts about this?
Yeah, it's something we talk about, and now we've hit the point where, I mean, our youngest daughter was born here, but now our oldest daughter has lived here longer than in the US. I mean, it's really cool. Like, part of us moving was actually to give them that experience. Like, we didn't have it, but we felt it would be really cool to grow up speaking two languages. I mean, Germany and the US aren't so far apart, but it's still different. And so giving them exposure to just different ways people approach things. And I think that has all happened, and it's really cool to see. Yeah, also living in Heidelberg, like I said, it's very international. So, like, my older daughter is just in the public school, but her class is made up with people from all over the place. And so I think she has like really great exposure to just people from all different walks of life and places. And so that's really cool. But it's something that we've talked about of like, what will it be like if we ever move back to the US, and how will they adjust? And I think they will be fine. Like, kids are surprisingly resilient to all of this change, and better than me sometimes. If we stay here till my daughters are in high school, will they be like, oh, my mom and dad, like they don't speak German well enough, and they're like, we're not really Germans. I don't know, like maybe they'll be upset because they want to be like more like their friends whose families are just more German. Or will they want to move back and experience something like being in the US? Or will we feel like we need them to experience like what it's like to grow up in the US because they'll pretty much have a German childhood? I think we know it'll be different. I think we're trying to be mindful of it, but also like not trying to stress about it too much, especially I think once they're deciding to go to college. I remember I was like really trying to figure out my own identity, and they will have a more complicated one. But I think they will figure it out. I think for them, it's like, oh, I want to go back to the US to go to grandma and grandpa's house. I mean, that's about it. Like, they really want to go back all the time to do that. But like, that's like the big thing is they just kind of know, oh, like that's where I can go to like sleep at grandma's house, and that's cool, so I want to go do that. But I don't think they like have yet any concept of like what it's like to actually live there other than vacation time. And whereas like my wife and I, having like spent obviously much more time in the US, going back is like a much more conflicted feeling of, oh, it's really nice to be back with family, but now I feel very differently about the fact that you have to drive everywhere, or that things are so spread out, or I miss this from Europe now, or I like this, I wish Europe would have this. Yeah, I just kind of feel like I don't belong in either place now. But I also wouldn't trade it because I really enjoy having had more experiences. And I guess going back to your question, that's what I hope for the kids, is that I think it'll probably make certain things harder because it's not the normal experience that maybe their friends will have. But I also hope in time they like appreciate having had an experience of growing up this way. So we'll see.
I think you're pretty considerate about it, but without stressing yourself out about how they will deal with their mixed identity as they're growing up. It sounds like perhaps the best way to think about it. You can only draw from your own experiences, right? You having a lot more US time, a little bit of German time, and then the other way around, especially as time progresses.
Yeah.
You can draw from that experience and say that actually it's not one is better than the other. The mix is actually what's powerful, right, in this case.
We have made it so that our younger daughter can't be president, but I'm okay with that because she was born here. I think it's made my life richer. I hope it's the same for them. And I think it's also like, I don't know. I'm still curious to see how they're going to turn out as adults. So yeah, maybe they will be frustrated teenagers that we made them live here. But maybe they'll change their mind in a few years. So I don't know. I'll get there when we get there. And I think where we were in 2021 with trajectory we were on, with like both just working a lot in order to afford where we were at, and dealing with crazy childcare costs. There are certain things I miss, but I also think like I think a lot has changed between moving from the US to Germany. But I think in terms of like family balance and work-life balance, we've achieved a better situation than we had in the US. It's not binary black and white, one better than the other, but I think like some of the stresses we were having, which it's hard to factor out COVID, like that was adding an extra layer on top. So maybe things would feel different now. But I think we're providing a better life for our family in general for now. So I don't think it was like a bad decision, and they'll have an extra story or two to tell people when they meet them in the future about where they grew up. And yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so the benefits currently outweigh the costs.
Yeah, I don't think like the benefits or costs calculation is the same for everyone. There's a lot of factors that go into should you move and will it actually be better for you. I also think you can't make that judgment until at least year 2. The first year, our equation of costs versus benefits was much more skewed in the other direction, but we kind of forced ourselves to like live here at least 3 years. We kind of knew it would need more than 1 year to like make that assessment. And there's definitely a point 8-9 months in where we were like, we've made a terrible mistake. We should move back. Yeah, been like, no, we have to stay longer than this. And it slowly got better. And now we're in like, I think a much better place. So I think it's also same with the kids. Like right now it seems good. Maybe it will change your mind later, but I think it takes time to see like life is hard. You can't like play out all the timelines. You just kind of have to make the best decision you can at any point in time and see where it goes and not play the what if game, I guess.
I agree completely. I'm just thinking of Doctor Strange right now with Dormammu turning the time stone.
It would be fun to play through all of these, I guess, but I think you can also get kind of paralyzed trying to think through all the possible scenarios. And sometimes my brain goes to like the worst case scenario quite often. And so I have to kind of like stop myself and say, like, okay, time box this anxiety. It's not going to do any good. What's like one thing I can do to move forward? And
You did mention that there are some things that you miss about home, some things that you would miss about Europe or Germany when you move back for visits. Can you tell me more about that?
I mean, I think with having kids, the thing that we miss most is family. It's hard to replace that. I grew up with a pretty large family, and that was like a big part of my childhood was spending every weekend with aunts, uncles, cousins, grandma, grandpa, whatever. So I think there's some aspect of me that feels like I would like to offer something similar to my own kids, but I have to like also stop and realize it's not the same situation. I don't have as many siblings as my parents did. They don't have as many cousins, so it's not going to be perfectly replicated. But that being said, it's really hard every time we visit my parents or they come and visit us or any other family that comes and visits, seeing how much it means to my kids and how hard it is to leave. It's like, okay, this could be happening potentially more frequently if we were there. And I think that's the biggest thing. There are small things like, I don't know, whenever we go back, we go make sure to go to In-N-Out, or my wife always wants to go to Target because there's like really nothing like Target here. They're like small things. It's not like I would move back just for those, but there's like some things that are just like we want to do every time we're back. And then like moving here, we haven't owned a car since we've moved here, and that's been super nice. I've really enjoyed just living in a more walkable place. We ride our bikes everywhere. It's just nice to not feel like you have to get in a car to go somewhere. I guess you just like get to know a place better by like walking around and like biking. I would drive past places all the time, but because you're focused on the road, you don't necessarily see like what's going on. It allows you to be a bit more present and get to wave at people because it takes longer to pass them when you're walking. I think we noticed this in COVID too, when we could only like go on walks around the neighborhood. We suddenly met all of our neighbors who we had been driving past for several years, right? And we finally, I don't know, like 2 blocks over, we started meeting this family because we were just walking by every day. And so I think there's like some amount of community and feeling that you get by just living in a more walkable neighborhood. So I think that's been like a big change to our lifestyle that I think has been a positive one. In Europe, you have a lot of smaller countries with long histories really close together. And so you can like take really short trips and experience very different things. And you can do the same in the US. You can go experience different parts of the US. Like it does feel different, but there's something to be said for like you go on a train for 3 hours and suddenly everyone around you is speaking a completely different language. And and just when you thought you were getting the hang of German, now you're in, I don't know, France or Italy or somewhere else. Europe as a whole, there's some amount that's you can ascribe to just Europeans. But I think just even different places in Germany, different countries nearby, people also have different ways of living. And I think just getting to see all of that is cool. Also for the kids, getting to see, yeah, we went on a train and now these 10 things are different with how they like to do things. And I think it's just cool.
What is a small but beautiful thing about living in Heidelberg?
That's a good question. I think the obvious way I can answer this is like Heidelberg is a very beautiful city. We have like the nice castle that we can see when we're just walking by our apartment, and there's lots of green hills and all of this. And so I think this is like super nice. We can go for a walk by the river, see cool old buildings. And I think there's like sometimes I'm still like amazed just walking down the street to be like, oh, I like live in a fairy tale place. It was a factor in I think us making it this far, having like a really cool city that was very vibrant, lots going on, and also just a really beautiful city. I think it like helped us get through some periods. In terms of things that I love most is I think we've built up a really great community with a lot of stronger relationships. I think like they've been put under some amount of pressure with like everyone's life situations happening. And so I think we've made some close friends really quickly. And I think it's something I'm really grateful for. And we talked about earlier, like, yeah, maybe it could be a bit more diverse, but I think also like lots of people move in and out of the city, but somehow this ebbs and flows over time as different people come and go, and but it also changes with each person that joins. And I just really value everyone that we get to hang out with. And so I think for me, it's like really is these people that I would never have had the chance to meet other than just being in this life circumstance. It gives me a lot of like life and energy to just be a part of that. And without them, I don't think we would have made it this far. So I think that's like the biggest factor in like us having a successful life here in the last 4 years. It definitely takes time. There was definitely a strong moms network, and then I was like, oh well, now I've like met some other dads, and then I was like, okay, I just started like inviting people like every other Wednesday, let's meet here and hang out, and people started showing up, and we would go after the kids were in bed, which sometimes meant it went late. So for anyone listening, like if you just organize stuff, maybe the stuff that you're into, I think you have to be more willing to just like make the community yourself, but I think it pays off. But it is challenging. I would like text random people and be like, I met you like once. I think I have this weird gut feeling that you would fit in with everyone else. Do you want to hang out with us? And I don't know.
Nice.
It's just being willing to send those texts. Yeah.
And of course, organizing a time and date, and of course, there's a lot of administration, so there's effort in there on the
Yeah,
part of
yeah.
the organizer for
But
sure.
again, I benefit from it, so I don't mind.
That's
Yeah.
when you see the big picture. Nice. I love your answer. What do you wish someone had told you before you moved?
That's a good question. We tried listening to like lots of interviews with people who had moved here, and like I think we knew stuff like everything's closed on Sunday, you have to do this or that form. But I knew it was going to be a challenge moving to Germany without really knowing any of the language. But I think there was a lot of things that I think we could have gotten by a lot easier if maybe we had spent more time ahead of the move, even though I don't know if we could have pulled it off with everything going on with the new baby and everything. But I think if you move here, do the night classes, do something like get a handle on the language early. I think I relied too much on people, especially people who already spoke both languages, telling me, don't worry, you'll be fine with just English. But I think like the people who can speak both languages don't realize how often you can't always get by with just English because they can switch back to German, and nothing against them. They can do both. But I think we really hit this, especially early on, at first, like really being able to speak nothing. So I think people told me it would be fine. And I think I had wished that I knew that it was maybe it would have stopped me. So then maybe it's good that I didn't know this. But if I could have changed one thing, it was just having a better grasp on the language would have been helpful.
Ben, thanks a lot for taking a chance on being on the show. I really enjoyed hearing you and your story. Is there anything you want to call out to the audience, maybe where they can find you or any advice?
Probably not everyone needs to know my GitHub or something. It's like my only social. I don't remember off the top of my head what all of my handles are, but like if someone is moving and has questions, I'd be very happy to like respond to a message or an email or whatever. If people want to hear more and just want a deeper explanation to some question they have. If you're thinking about moving overseas, I think it's a big decision, and I think the more questions you can ask ahead of time, the easier it is to picture what life will be like. So I'm happy to take some time to help someone. I know that I asked a lot of questions before we moved, and it was super helpful. So if I can do the same for someone else, I'd be happy to do so.
Hopefully this show doesn't blow up, because then you're going to get a lot of emails or contact.
Then it'll take me a little bit longer, but yeah.
Oh man. Okay. Ben, thanks a lot again.
Thank you.